we usually begin writing with a spark. A what-if sort of premise that we build the story around. Even with this excitement, you'll begin to ask yourself questions like, is my idea good enough? Or, is it original enough? And while both are valid questions, we like to take a different approach and think of it more like a chef in the kitchen. You see, writing's a lot like cooking. And just like how a great chef can take basic ingredients and craft a terrific dish, the truth of the matter is, ideas are easy to come by. It's the execution with those ingredients that really matter. We can all point to wonderful books we love that didn't exactly break the mold or challenge typical story conventions. We can also point to books filled with tons of out-of-the-box thinking that just didn't work at all. When shopping for ideas, writers typically look for things that don't normally go together, to find combinations that writers have never seen before. While this can result in a killer combination such as
dinosaurs in a theme park, a crafty spider saves a pig's life, zombies in a Regency romance,
there's always a bit of risk when stepping out of the comfort zone to create combinations an audience has never seen before. How exactly do I make mayonnaise, oregano, cocoa powder, and Brussels sprouts go together? New writers may want to take on smaller tweaks to establish conventions or typical audience expectations. You wouldn't assume every person prefers a filet mignon with red wine reduction, parsnip puree, and lemon pepper roasted asparagus. Some people are fine with processed American cheese or the whitest toast that they can find. So as a story chef, it's important to know how experimental you want to be, how appetizing your story premise is, so to speak. Your premise, often called the hook, is the reason that people will want to read your story. And there are no hard, fast rules about what consists of a good hook. It's all completely subjective based on the audience. Okay, so you got your ingredients, you have a new flavor combination that you are excited to try. Now what? Is there a way you can kind of taste test this before you get started? Sort of. Try writing a short summary of it, maybe about 250 words. The sort of thing that you could tell somebody in 2 minutes. A little sample, if you will. Write it out. See how it sits with you. Try it with some friends. See if it's enticing. Or try tossing it to the AutoCrit community. There's a link down below for that. Even if you haven't fleshed out all your characters yet, you want to make sure that your premise has a clear conflict. A world in jeopardy, an unusual discovery that has experts baffled, a mystery to be solved, etc., etc. Along the way, you might get feedback that causes you to tweak your initial concept, but don't forget, you need to be passionate about your idea. Sometimes writers try so hard to write to the market that they forget that they need to be the most excited person for their story than anyone. Honestly, the writing process is full of enough problems without adding to it that you aren't very interested in the first place. Often, a story begins with a what if in the writer's mind. What if someone found a dinosaur bone in their backyard, for example?
I think it's from a velociraptor.
Something you should try to do is to escalate or enhance your original idea. Instead of a dinosaur bone, what if they found an entire skeleton?
I wonder how much money I can make off of this.
Or let's go even further and say they found a frozen dinosaur.
I live in Florida. This is just straining credibility.
Often, writers hold back on a story and cost themselves the fun a story would have if pursued to the fullest extent. The next thing that's helpful to do from your premise is to build conflict and stakeholders. Who's gaining from the situation? Who's losing? Who wants the situation to continue? Who wants it to end? What's the best way to exploit the situation? What's the scariest thing about the situation? What's the funniest things about the situation? These sorts of questions will allow you to flesh out your premise from a what if to a fully fledged story with plot and characters. The deeper you allow yourself to exploit your premise, the more excited and confident you will be about it. And as you brainstorm, don't be afraid to substitute your main character or conflict as well. Try not to get too attached to ideas early on, or you'll miss out on some great opportunities. With the right ingredients, a unique combination of story elements, and a push towards fun, you are well on your way to a great book already. Happy brainstorming!